Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. It's Friday the 6th of October. My name is Joe and this is the news, and we've got some big news today. A few bits on the ownership. Jim Ratcliffe having a new bid, or a sort of slightly changed, twisted, altered bid that may well allow the Glazers to stay on as the majority owners of Manchester United for a longer period of time. Also got a couple of updates on Erik Ten Hag. One side, one opinion talking about him potentially leaving, which I think is absolute nonsense, but we'll get into that and sort of dispel that. And then we've got a bit of backup from Jamie Jackson, who's saying he is being back to Manchester United. Got the latest on Onana's AFCON decision that he needs to make, and also the latest as well on this ticketing issue that allowed thousands extra Galatasaray fans to be sat in the home end against Manchester United the other day, causing trouble, causing problems, violence in some cases, stealing the part of the, one of the, I can't even speak because I've been ill for 3 days. We all know what they stole. What's it called? A banner. There we go. Thank you very much. I think it was reclaimed in the end. However, just the sort of thing that we don't need to see happening, isn't it? And we'll get into the latest on that, because there's been a few different, United sort of came out and blamed United fans. Then there was this other thing of actually, oh no, it's not their fault. It's we'll get into all of that. But let's start with this Jim Ratcliffe stuff. This is a third twist in all of this, but almost along those same lines that we've seen the whole time, which is Jim Ratcliffe is willing to just sort of do whatever it takes to get Manchester United, even if that means, allowing the Glazers to stay on, allowing them to stay on as minority, as majority for a little bit. Let's just get into this. So Manchester United Takeover latest, as new Sir Jim Ratcliffe plan is being considered. If you scroll down a little bit, you see there Manchester United share price bounced back slightly. I don't care about that because it just fluctuates all the time and doesn't really matter. Amid this week's news that Sir Jim Ratcliffe could pivot into acquiring a small stake in the club, investors have seemingly deemed that as a better option than the Glazers staying with a 69% majority, although the scenario would see the owners in situ with the most influence. It's now been more than 10 months since the club was bought for sale. The Manchester Evening News understands that Sheikh Jassim bin Hamad Al Thani's bid remains at the takeover table, despite Avram and Joel's reluctance to sell. The Qatari banker is yet to receive a response in submitting his latest bid of $5 billion, which is slightly in contrast to some of the other reports that there's not been an official yes or no response, but that there has been sort of conversations and talks going on the whole time here. So it's not as though, yes, maybe Sheikh Jassim hasn't been told whether that bid is accepted or not, but that makes it seem as though they haven't received any response, as in no correspondence whatsoever, when apparently there has been conversations and there has been chats going on with both Sheikh Jassim and Jim Ratcliffe since those bids got put in, obviously neither of them being given a sort of green light. Ineos billionaire has said that it would be excruciating to walk away from the purchase talks regarding United empty-handed. His company already owns Nice. Anyway, the British businessman who previously bid for Chelsea last year is mulling over whether to attach clauses that would see him eventually become the majority owner should he submit a small share proposal. That's according to The Telegraph, which says he's just one of multiple options being considered by Ratcliffe. It adds that Ratcliffe has assured the Glazers that he can overcome the financial hurdles to land a successful takeover. The report says that the Glazers are willing to hold out for the right deal for them. The owners are said to have held discussions with potential suitors in recent months. Now, there's a lot of nothing there, isn't there, if we're honest? It doesn't actually detail what Jim Ratcliffe's bid is going to be, whether that's going to be what a minority share is that, obviously if he takes any more than sort of 20%, that would put the Glazers down at less than 50%, but they would still have more shares than anyone else. I don't know the exact workings of how the share structure work, what they would be willing to sell, whether they could operate a sort of, even though they don't have a full majority in terms of 51%, would presumably be spread around 3 or 4 other people who have even less shares than they do, which obviously they could band together and then get rid of the Glazers. But I don't know whether this would mean, Jim Ratcliffe buying 10% of the shares, 15%, or, something more like 25, 30%, which would obviously take that 51% away from the Glazers. However, they would still own the most shares of any single investor. That detail isn't in there, which I think is pretty crucial, because if we're looking at a point where Jim Ratcliffe takes over control of Manchester United, that would need to be a lot more than 10, 15% of the Glazers' shares. It would need to be, most of them or all of them. So, that's the next thing, isn't it, that we need to go through. Jeffrey Griffith says, majority don't want Jim, yet he's still trying. Glenn F says, I want Jimmy boy. There you go. Joshy64 says, morning Joe from sunny Devon. Good morning. Dak Panda says, Christ, we're done with this topic. This is like waiting for the 8th day of the week. I know, it's taking ages, isn't it? But there does seem to be a little bit of an update there. I mean, obviously, the update is, and it continues to be, Jim Ratcliffe is kind of movable on his position. He's willing to do whatever it takes to acquire Manchester United. And if that means allowing the Glazers to stay a bit longer, then he'll do that. And if that means buying them out but letting them have a minority stake, then he'll do that as well. It's kind of what you want. If you're the Glazers, if you look at it from their perspective, this is kind of what you want, isn't it? Obviously, they want more money. They want 10 billion or 6 or 7 or whatever it is billion. But other than that, you've got one offer from Sheikh Jassim, which is like, we'll just buy everything. We'll take you all out. You don't have to worry about it. You've completely finished your investment in Manchester United. You bought it for this, which was nothing of your own money, but you bought it for this. You're selling it for much, much more than that. See you later. Walk off into the sunset. You've made profit. Or you've got the other option. You go, maybe we stick around because this club could be worth a lot more. Then you've got Jim Ratcliffe going, yeah, we can make that work. We can leave you, keep your toe in. I'll take control. You keep your toe in, and we'll go from there. It's sort of perfect for them. What would be very frustrating, obviously, is if they went, actually, even though we've literally got the best of both worlds, we don't want either. That would be hugely frustrating. Let's move on then to Erik ten Hag. And this is the sort of thing that starts to come out when a manager is having a difficult time. Erik ten Hag tipped for shock Ajax return as he won't be at Manchester United for much longer. That is a headline in Britain's, fourth best-selling newspaper? Maybe third behind the Mail and the Sun? I think it is the third. Maybe producer Ethan can double check that for me. I'm pretty sure the Mirror is either third or the fourth best-selling newspaper in the country. Obviously, a huge name, huge weight held by the Daily Mirror. And they are running a headline, even though it's in quotes, I understand that, he won't be at Manchester United for much longer. So you think, okay, well, fair enough, it's in quotes, so maybe this is someone, it might be Sir Alex, it might be, wow, that would be amazing if they could get someone at the club to say this. That would be a real story. Let's see who said this. Former Ajax striker, Kenneth Perez. Now, unless I'm an absolute fucking idiot, I've never heard of Kenneth Perez. He's a 49-year-old Danish man who played for Ajax 27 times. Over 2 spells, about 40 times. Played most of his career at AZ Alkmaar, played for Ajax 24 times. What? Why are they running this story? Like, no offence, but they are only running that to put pressure on Erik ten Hag. I understand Kenneth Perez, he's had a decent career. I'm not trying to knock him. I'm not trying to have a go at him. He won a Danish Cup in 96, 97. Even when he was at Ajax, he only won, the Johan Cruyff Shield, and he won the Eredivisie FC 20. He's hardly the most decorated player that we all respect his opinion, and he's constantly in the public eye. The Mirror's the 8th best-selling paper in the UK. What's above that? Like Telegraph and all that? Sun, Metro. Metro don't count. He don't sell it. You can't have that. Anyone can give away 1 million papers a day. Fucking hell, all you have to do is put them in a train station doorway and someone will use them to mop up a spill. That don't count as sales. Fucking hell. No offence, Metro, but Jesus, even you wouldn't say you're the 6th best-selling newspaper in the country. Second? Yeah, they're on about circulation there, aren't they? Just chuck them in a doorway and that counts as sales. Anyway, so the reason we're running this Kenneth Perez piece is because the Mirror wants to have stories that are talking about Erik ten Hag getting sacked. It's a classic technique. It's a classic line where they're going, we're not saying he should get sacked. That's not us saying that. We're just quoting, famous opinion, I can't speak. Famous opinion maker, Kenneth Perez, who up until 1.5 minutes ago, I'd never heard of. I'm sure people of an older generation have. I may be being slightly disrespectful there, and I mean no disrespect to him personally because he's allowed his opinion. This is more the Mirror just doing the sort of thing that they do. Oh, here we go. Look, imagine if Erik ten Hag were fired. Would it be crazy for Erik ten Hag, for Ajax to ask him back? Perez asked on ESPN's Vert Bull Pratt via Metro. So we've got the 8th best paper, quoting the 2nd highest circulated paper, talking about the 150th best Danish athlete to play for the 8th best Dutch team in AZ Alkmaar. The Danish international striker had 2 spells at Ajax as a player, also won the Eredivisie under Erik ten Hag's assistant Steve McLaren. There you go. There's a little bit of a link there. Man United is known for a fact that things can get difficult if things don't go well. He added. He says, it's not a crazy idea, is it? Yeah. Manchester United are known for the fact that things can get difficult if things don't go well. That's true. As is every other football club in the world. No offence to Perez there, Kenneth Perez. I respect you. Very good, winger. I'm sure you've won the Eredivisie. You're clearly a good player. But I just think when you look at what's going on there, the reason that is in the Mirror is because the Daily Mirror want to run stories about Erik ten Hag being sacked. And I think that is a slippery slope that we start to get on, and I think you need to call it out when we see it. The next one, which I like to see, is from Jamie Jackson, obviously friend of the channel, comes on. He said that Ten Hag retains long-term Manchester United backing despite slump. Now, this is more like it. Erik ten Hag's position at Manchester United is secure for the foreseeable future and is not an issue up for discussion by the club executive. Despite a dismal run of early season form featuring 6 defeats from 10 games and 4 wins, including Tuesday's 3-2 Champions League defeat by Galatasaray, Ten Hag retains the firm confidence of the hierarchy who view the Dutchman as the right manager to take the side forward in the long term, the Guardian understands. Now that, the Guardian understands, I know obviously he's not giving quotes of who he's talking about there, but based on what we know of Jamie Jackson, based on what we know of how journalism works, that suggests to me that has come from within the club to a certain degree. That is a source from Manchester United, which is obviously much more reputable and much more of a needed source than former Danish striker Kenneth Perez. So that's that's good to see there. Let's move on to Onana. Now this is it's good and it's also bad, isn't it? His form for Manchester United has been so poor that he feels guilty leaving to go to the AFCON, which is apparently, according to ESPN. André Onana is reluctant to take time away from United to play for Cameroon in January after a difficult start to his career at Old Trafford, a source has told ESPN. Onana quit international football following the World Cup after a disagreement with head coach Rigobert Song. He agreed to return for the final of the AFCON qualifier against Burundi in September amid pressure from the government and the Cameroon FA. A 3-0 victory for Cameroon booked their place in the tournament, which starts in the Ivory Coast on January the 13th. Onana, however, is reluctant to take part because it could mean the 27-year-old missing a month of the Premier League season, and according to a source close to the player, his priority is to focus on his new club. I like to see that. And I think that hopefully by the time that rolls around in January the 13th, which is just over 3 months away, we will see a much more settled André Onana, someone that has sort of put this early kind of shakiness behind him. And we may not have, and it may take longer than that. But hopefully it won't be this thing of, he's come in, he's made a few mistakes and now he's gone. Hopefully we'll go, actually, as much as it pains us to say it, he can go there and we'll miss him, rather than going, well, actually, it might not be the worst thing in the world. Some people want him dropped anyway. But I think that we'll have started to see a much more settled André Onana. It's one of those things, isn't it? When the team is playing badly, no one is really immune from that. And we saw David De Gea hold on for a few years, didn't we, after Sir Alex left and United sort of dipped in form. De Gea remained world class for 2, 3, 4 years. But eventually, that even got to him, that atmosphere, that trend of how United played, the performances, the results, eventually got to De Gea as well. I'm not saying the only reason his form fell off is because everyone else was bad, but you see it that it's hard to be a real top player when everyone's playing badly. Look at the season before last. Players like Rashford, players like Luke Shaw, players like Wan-Bissaka, basically everyone, Bruno Fernandes, most players at Manchester United, the year Solskjaer got sacked, were awful. Even ones who had very good years the season before. Even ones who went on to have very good years the season after. Look at Rashford last year, 30 goals. But when United and everyone is bad in the team, it's hard to stand out and be a top player. And I know, obviously, letting the ball go through your hands against Bayern Munich, you can't blame that on, us not scoring at the other end. But I think once the whole team gets this confidence, once he's having to do less, once there are less shots on goal against us, once there's less pressure against him, hopefully he'll be able to settle down, have a few games where, wouldn't it be nice to have 2 or 3 games in a row where Onana doesn't really have to do anything, and get his confidence back, and then we'll see that player that we signed from Inter Milan, because there's obviously a very good player there. Let's move on to this Galatasaray issue then. United released a sort of statement on this whole sort of farce of thousands want it, basically. Galatasaray fans sort of intermittently kind of spotted around the home end against Manchester United on Tuesday night. Obviously some reports as well of issues and problems, and we saw I think it was in the away end where they took the sign down. So obviously that wasn't necessarily the cause of that, but just generally it was a bit of a mess, the whole thing. So we see here Manchester United have told fans who have written to the club complaining about the number of Galatasaray fans in the home section that they were taking steps to prevent it from happening again. In their reply to supporters, United confirmed that some tickets were unofficially accessed by or transferred to visiting fans, even though they were all allocated to season ticket holders or members. United are still investigating the extent of the problem and precisely why it occurred, and say they hope to have an update next week. It was estimated that well over 1,000 Galatasaray fans were dotted around the stadium during the game, with many coming together after the final whistle to celebrate their side's surprise 3-2 Champions League victory. United have not discounted the possibility that some of UEFA's allocation of Category A tickets for the home part of the stadium would have been given to Galatasaray guests, club partners and families, as normal practice in the Champions League was part of the problem. There was singing in the director's box as well as the wider stadium after the final whistle. They are also continuing what is regarded as an ongoing battle to identify touts who have season tickets. Man United sources reject absolutely the idea that the tickets donated to the Man United Foundation by season ticket holders were sold for more than the standard ground admission price. The club realised the issue of ticketing remains a problem, even though they are now sent, even though they are now sent direct to phones with a QR code. The BBC Sport has been told they are working on technology that would be a ticket to a specific device, which would in theory make it almost impossible to tout. Yeah, very interesting. There was one thing I saw that I'd never seen before when we were in America, where the tickets weren't just a QR code, they were a moving QR code, almost like a video. So if you took a screenshot and sent it to your friend or whatever, then that wouldn't work because there was a moving element to it. So I don't know if that would help prevent stuff like this. I don't know the methods that these tickets are sort of sent out and sold. If you just sort of forward in an email, then I guess it can go. Even maybe the moving thing would go with that, but we found it very difficult to get people in who had access. We had media access, and even then we found it very difficult to get people in who were supposed to be there. So I would guess getting people in who weren't would be very difficult if they did something like that. Maybe that's something. I think the device thing in particular is a tricky one because it's a shit situation that if your phone's died, you cannot get into the game. Obviously, I guess you could just prepare for that, but yeah, I mean, what happened is unfortunate, and there are a lot of things going around on social media, some of which look legit, but you never know, like the price of the tickets and who got those tickets and why they got those tickets. But United are looking into it, and I guess once they've released an announcement and an official, once they've released an official verdict on that, then we can sort of analyse whether that verdict is legit or not. But for now, it's just a shit situation that United are looking into. And finally, before we go, then we've got a sort of a statement from the 1958, obviously, the fan group for Manchester United. It said, a call for unity of all fan groups and fan representatives, a call to boycott the club. Now, they released a quite long statement here talking about how the Glazers have failed to continue with their promise of engaging with the fans. Look at this. 18 months ago, Joel Glazer attended that fans forum. I believe it was on Zoom. Basically saying we're going to do more. This was after the fall of the Super League. We know we've made mistakes. We want to involve the fans more. We've got all this sort of fan on the board sort of suggestions that we'll have a look at it. They've basically done nothing ever since. They said that they'd do this. It says there, look, the Glazers have since used the illusion of a meaningful dialogue as a tool for manipulating and deception. They failed to honour the demands made, instead giving false assurances, enabling them to continue with their existing agenda of destroying our club for profit. Go on their page and read the full thing yourself, and obviously get involved in that if you want to as well. They say there at the end, if we get down there, yeah, there you go. It says, and the very organised, it's time to end all dialogue with those who seek to destroy the club, its history and its future. We must not be complicit in their plans. We will be reaching out to these key groups and individuals, and in the interest of transparency, we'll provide further updates on progress. The next fans forum is Tuesday the 10th of October, which is 4 days' time. Tough decisions need to be made. It's time to call the banners and form up. It is interesting, isn't it? Like, we've got to the point where this promise of the Glazers working with the fans, or, we've learned our lesson from the Super League, it's all just lies. We knew at the time, and obviously the 1958 knew this as well. I don't think they've been tricked. They just maybe were slightly hopeful, as we all were, that this could turn into something slightly more meaningful. But it didn't, we kind of knew this was all just a PR thing, because they felt like we were kicking off after the Super League. We saw what happened before the Liverpool game. They knew that if they let this go and they let this go on, what would be after that? We've invaded the stadium, we've gone on the pitch, a game has been postponed. The next steps after that are something that they can't really allow to happen. So they came out, they said they're going to work with the fans, they said they're going to be nice, they said they're going to, give us voting rights, or certainly allow the fans' voices to be heard around the decision making in Manchester United. And they lied. They've done none of that. They've done absolutely none of it, and the 1958 are exactly right to call it out, as is everyone else who has been calling it out for the longest time as well. So go out and check that out. Get stuck in, read what they have to say, and any sort of plans and protests that come out off the back of this. We will wholeheartedly support as a channel, as we've continued to do throughout the entire time the Glazers have been around, and since we've existed as a channel. So yeah, hopefully we saw at the start, there's offers on the table for the Glazers, and the faster that they can get out, as we all know, the better. But yeah, thank you very much for joining us. This has been the news for Friday the 6th of October. We're back this afternoon for the brew. I think Webby's on as well, so make sure you check that out. It's going to be fantastic as always. Last time I was there producing the brew and Webby was on, I was literally pissing my pants for half of it. So make sure you go and check that out. Thank you for joining. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. We'll see you in a bit.